Okay, let me know if this works. Hello, hello. I refuse to be beaten by tech. Please let me know if you can all see me. I've resorted to my iPhone because my computer froze and I went through my whole workshop and then realized that it didn't record, or it only went for 12 seconds. Hey little monkey, I'm just doing my workshop. Yeah, no. Anyway, let me know. Okay, I can see people starting to come on now, which is great. So day 4 of the Life Reset, and today we are talking about your environment. And I would love to know, how have you been getting on in the first 3 days? I've absolutely loved watching your comments. Sorry, I've got a little monkey in the room. Indy, out please. What more could go wrong today? Can you move Indy out? Sorry, I've got my little 9-year-old monkey that's crept in here, even though I said, Mummy's on a workshop. Please give me some space. We call ourselves the Velcro family because we're all kind of stick next to one another. Thanks, honey. Bye. Anyway, I'd love to know. Back to the workshop. Such is life, right? The best laid plans, tech gets in the way, or a monkey comes in the room and distracts everything. And yeah, I got to the end of my workshop before. I was like, oh, that was great. And then I realized Trent was like, the video on the group only shows a few seconds that's been recorded. So here we go again. Anyway, I can see, comments coming through. Okay, perfect. So I'd love to hear how the first few days went for you ladies. I've loved reading all of the comments. It honestly it's such a highlight. I absolutely love doing these because it's so nice just to see the impact that some of these tools have on you. And I love seeing you ladies start to think about things and start to try out some of these tools in your lives back home. So thank you for sharing those with me. It really does mean a lot. And so today I want to talk about environment and how much your environment shapes your reality. Day 1 was all about creating space. Day 2, we talked about your identity and how your identity shapes your belief, which then shapes your reality. I love that one, by the way. Day 2 is my favorite. Day 3 was another fabulous one, and it was about energy. So about cultivating your energy and how and why decision fatigue happens. I'm sure, like me, so many of you might be sitting here today, especially if you're dialing in from down under after a big hard day at work, probably feeling a little bit empty in the tank. So decision fatigue is very real, and so we spoke about that yesterday. And so if you haven't already, make sure you go back, because the way that these micro workshops have been designed is that they're built in layers, and each layer builds on the other one. So those are the 3 things that we've covered so far, and today, day 4, is all about your environment, because your environment plays such a huge role in terms of the cues it shows you. And so many people aren't aware of how it's either set up to help you achieve your goals, or actually is your biggest form of sabotage in terms of not allowing you to reach them or not allowing you to start them. And sometimes you don't even realize, if you don't have consciousness over how your environment is shaping your thoughts and your behaviors. So it's a simple concept as well, but something that I think is really powerful when you have more of a deeper understanding of it. So that's what I want to go through today. And yeah, let me know what you think. Feel free to ask any questions. I still can't see comments. I can only see who's watching. So I will reply to them after I get off the video. So today brings all of that together in a really practical way. And when I think about, I shared my story over the last couple of days just to illustrate some of these concepts. But when I think about that time in my life that I shared with you in that story the other day, after years of feeling really unwell, I'd really started to see myself differently. So my belief about myself, my identity radically changed, like I mentioned. And I moved differently. I made lots of different choices, and my world had quietly readjusted around that new identity that I had created. And when I began to change that, something else became really, really clear to me. And it wasn't just what I believed about myself, so it wasn't just about my identity, but it was about what I surrounded myself with. And that played a major role in helping me change what I did and how I did it. One of the biggest things I see over time is that women continue to rely on their willpower and then get really frustrated with themselves when their willpower runs out, which it does, because we know it's finite. And they try to do the right thing, and they try to stay on track, and they try to stay consistent, and they try to put a lot of force into, what they're doing and try to push through. And that works. That does work. That's a strategy, and it works for a while until it doesn't, because it will always run out if we try to approach things from a push perspective, from a willpower perspective. And so I often think, what if it's not about trying harder, but about making things and making your environment easier? So instead of pushing towards a goal and trying harder, you're actually making your whole environment and what you surround yourself with easier, like an enabler of your goals, rather than something that's just distracting you and actually, or putting temptation in your way, or actually completely sabotaging your efforts without you even realizing it. And I think that's the interesting thing about the brain, because the brain is constantly scanning the environment. Remember yesterday we spoke about this. It's looking for cues, like it's seeking out its little feelers and looking for cues around you. Things that tell you what to do next, because it loves the familiar, right? Remember the RAS from day 2? The brain filter. So it's looking for those familiar cues that it can operate on and that it can act upon. So your environment is either supporting you or it's quietly pulling you back into those old patterns, because it wants to find the familiar, right? So you start something new and your brain doesn't like that. It doesn't like newness, because newness is scary, and it tries to pull you back to your old familiar patterns. And this is something that I really noticed in my own life. As I started shifting how I saw myself, I also started changing what was around me. So I had to, with that awareness, had to make a specific attempt to change my environment, because I didn't want any headwind. I didn't want any friction. Once I decided that that was what I was going to do, remember I spoke about going past that line in the sand, and I was like, no, I need to change things up here. I knew I needed to set myself up for success, I guess. So in order to do that, I had to make sure that my environment was really supportive, and it was in the same line as the vision I had for myself. And so I looked at things like what food I had in the house, for example, who I followed on social media, what workout clothes I had and what I wore, and also the things that were in my sight lines every day. So what was visible to me? So I had my supplements out on the table. I had nice workout gear ready to go and laid out the night before, and my workout shoes. I had my gym bag packed. I knew that music and podcasts were really motivating for me. So I decided the night before what I would listen to and how I wanted to feel. And so I imagined that. So then when I woke up the next day, that was already familiar to me, and it was also easy for me. And so that played a huge role in terms of just changing the ship, turning the ship, because it was a lot to shift. And those small changes just made everything easier for me. And it wasn't, again, about discipline, but it was simply because I changed my environment and my surroundings, and that created a lot less resistance. And so your brain, the way it's made up, when it's doing its job, it follows whatever is easy. So I made it easy for my brain to make that change, because I knew, and always remember this, if you take out one thing from today, your brain doesn't like change, and it will actively work against you when you try to change, when you try to form a new habit, when you try to set a new goal for yourself and go for it, it will resist that. And so you need to be smart about how you approach it and think, how do I remove resistance in my surroundings or in my environment to help me reach that goal? Because my brain is going to want to keep me in the safe harbor. It doesn't want me to go out in the ocean towards my new dreams. It wants to keep me safe. And that's exactly, our brain's doing its job, right? From a primal perspective, it's set up to do that, to keep us safe. So I think just having that awareness when we're embarking on something new is really important, because we can ask ourselves those questions. And like anything, like when we're at work, when we prepare well, we know our chance of success is much higher. So it's the same with new habit formation. We just need to prepare well. I often think what is going to derail it? So what could blindside me when I am starting out something new? What's the one thing that could send me really off track? And I knew, for example, with the gym and with fitness, when I was getting back into it, that it could be getting unwell. And so I had to come up with a plan for that, to go, okay, so if that happens, and it did, I got sinusitis, which I get sometimes, that I knew just to take it easy and just to do some little things that would work instead of going to the gym. So I knew a beach walk, for example, would be a lot better. And so therefore you're not losing your self-trust, because one of the biggest things that can derail you from reaching your goals is falling off the wagon, because then you lose trust with yourself. And when you've lost trust with yourself, even in those micro ways of, oh, I didn't do it this time, and face it, most of us are perfectionists, right? Then it can just derail our plans completely. So when you're thinking about making these new changes, you're thinking about your environment, setting up for success, and then also, well, what could I be blindsided with, and how do I approach it if I do? So again, that becomes familiar. So when that does happen, there's always a likelihood of things throwing us off track. We're busy at work and we have a stressful meeting, and that yin yoga class we were going to go to with our friend Anne just didn't happen because you don't want to go to it after you're stressed. And so just bear in mind that those things are going to happen, and prepare for them, because it's all in the preparation and the planning. And the reason you do that is because then it becomes familiar to your brain and you don't break your self-trust. Does that make sense? Have you thought of times where that's been a reality for you? I know it has for me many times. So this is lived experience of me going down the wrong path many times and beating myself up about it, and then taking a long time to restart. So this is now how I approach things. I try to set myself up for success, knowing that there are going to be things that blindside me, and knowing that my environment has to work for me, otherwise it's working against me. And change is hard enough after that willpower and the gloss of something shiny and new wears off, or if I'm tired. So when you think about yesterday, and we were talking about the prefrontal cortex, when we're talking about how our executive function just drains like a fuel tank, by the end of the day you end up tired. So your decision making is depleted. So if your environment isn't supporting you, you'll default to what's familiar. And so that's just a key thing to remember. And that's where the science of habits really comes in. So when you first start something new, it feels like a lot of effort. There's a bit of resistance, like I mentioned. There's a lot of headwind, because your brain is wired to what's familiar. And you've probably heard that phrase, neurons that fire together, wire together. So whatever you do repeatedly, the stronger that pathway becomes. And then it becomes automated. So the more you do that, often it's around 21 days to form that habit. What once felt like effort then becomes more automated. Just like brushing your teeth. For those of us that have had kids, and we've seen, it's hilarious, isn't it? Seeing those little monkeys start to learn how to brush their teeth, and it's all wonky and just hilarious, or learn to smile even. And then after them practicing and practicing, it just becomes automatic. You don't have to think about it, you just do it. And that's what we're creating here, really. That in very, very simple form. So not something that you have to force at all, but something that becomes part of how you live, connecting back to that environment. So in the early stages where it still feels really new, this is where your environment matters most. Because the more friction you remove, the greater your chances of success become. And that's examples like I mentioned before, having your workout clothes ready, having your supplements like I did on your nightstand, putting your phone somewhere where you can't see it, having your journal visible so you can journal when you wake up in the morning if that's one of your goals. Because what's around you shapes what you do next. And this is also why retreat feels so powerful. I know so many of you have come to us on retreat, and you'll understand that, you walk into an environment that's all set up to support your wellness goals. And you're not surrounded by the same cues as you are at home. Your bed's made for you. You can roll out of bed and onto the Pilates mat. You don't have the same demands on you, the same responsibilities, the same people expecting something of you. No one's expecting anything of you, and you can just be. And everything around you is set up to support you. So things naturally start to feel a lot easier because there's no force. And so for today, for home play, I'd love you to get out your workbook and take a really good and reflect on your environment. And just choose one thing, thinking through these questions. What's supporting you? What in your environment is supporting you with that one thing? Whatever that goal is, it doesn't have to be big. Again, sometimes the simpler the better. But how is your environment supporting you? And what in your surroundings or your environment is actually making things harder? What's working against you? And then I want you to think about what's one small shift. How do you take something that's working against you out of the equation? How do you turn that into something supportive? You might come up with a whole lot of things. Maybe through bringing consciousness to it, you'll see how many things actually have been standing in your way that you didn't even realize. But it doesn't have to be big. It can be something really small, something really obvious. And what I'd love you to do, because I think these sorts of observations can really help others, I would love you to pop that down below this video and share that if you feel called to. Because I think it's always great when we learn from one another's experience as well. It might spark something within ourselves. So ladies, that's me for today. Tomorrow is our final day. I can't believe it, day 5. And I've saved something really wonderful for the last day. Again, another really powerful lesson that has really helped me a lot. And so I've saved the best for last. And remember that we're also giving away a $500 voucher, retreat voucher, for one of you beautiful women that stays committed to this whole process. I've loved seeing all of the comments throughout this week. So please make sure you share below. And I read everyone, comment on everyone, and get such a thrill out of seeing you follow along. That's it from me in Bali. Bye for now. Have a beautiful evening wherever you are, or beautiful morning or afternoon, depending on when you watch this. And I look forward to seeing you tomorrow. Bye from Bali.